4 minutes until showtime. Three minutes until showtime. Two minutes until showtime. One minute until showtime. Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to the show. This is Trucking with Authority. I'm your host, Kenny Long, and for the next hour, consider me your navigator on your journey to success in business, especially the trucking business. We can talk about anything here on the show tonight, from getting started as a driver, buying your first truck, leasing to a carrier, switching to a new carrier, getting your own authority, dealing with brokers, finding freight, finding direct customers, negotiation. That has been a huge topic. We can talk about all that here tonight. This hour is yours. I want to turn this into a question and answer session tonight. Call the number at the bottom of your screen. We are streaming live on Blog Talk Radio. Call the number 917-889-9924. Press 1 on your keypad. We will take the calls live. Looks like we already have a couple of callers on. Elizabeth is in the other room screening calls. This works just like a regular call-in talk radio show. Call in, press 1 on your keypad. That'll raise your hand. Elizabeth will screen your call, get your name and question, and we will bring you on the air. I've had a lot of things going on over the past couple of months. I haven't done a whole lot of shows. I did a kind of a special episode show late on Friday night. I've got a lot of great feedback from that. I have some new content that I'd like to start bringing forward, and I've decided that YouTube might be a better platform rather than Facebook. So I'm going to start pushing and developing the YouTube channel. So please, I've shared it out in all of the Facebook groups, but instead of doing a Facebook Live, we'll be doing a YouTube Live. The new format, I can read your comments as we go, and please keep the discussion going long after the video, but I think YouTube might be a better platform for what I've got in mind going forward. So we'll give it a shot tonight, see how it works out. Join all of the Facebook groups. The big hot group lately has been trucking rates and lanes. I've been getting a lot of show topics, a lot of good questions, a lot of great feedback over there in that group. Also, the Trucking with Authority Facebook page and group. If you have any questions about getting your own authority, compliance issues, and so forth, there's a lot of good resources there in that group. Negotiation, when you want to learn about rates, learn about lanes, the Rates and Lanes group is awesome. If you get your own authority and you've got your numbers up and running, we have another small, somewhat niche group called Motor Carrier Meetup. Some interesting stuff over there. That is where the entire idea for the Drive seminar kicked off, was in that group. That was something we used to do, an annual get-together, and we are planning something again, and I hope to have some information for you here very soon on what we've got going on. I've got some questions I'd like to get to, and really they all kind of stem from the same idea. Again, I will be following only the YouTube stream tonight. If you have any questions or comments that you'd like to add, please join the YouTube stream and you can ask those live, or even better, call the number at the bottom of your screen, 917-889-9924, and ask your questions. This hour, again, is all yours. But what I have noticed is a huge trend. Obviously, rates have been fantastic this year. They're still great rates. We are starting to see the regional differences again. A few months ago, the entire country, didn't matter where you were, you could roll out of your truck, fall in a pile of money. Now you do have to pay attention to the best lanes, especially where you need to position your truck, what you need to be doing. Do not sit and let any dust grow, because sitting and waiting for a great rate is just costing you money. You have daily expenses. You have, if you never drove that truck again, you'll still have to pay for it. You've got your insurance. You've got your truck payment. You've got all the other things that come out. Do not sit and wait for great rates. I know there are areas of the country right now that are not paying fantastic, but some of the rates and people that I see complaining about rates are coming back with quotes that are higher than they were on average last year, and they're saying that it's just barely enough for fuel money and that type of thing. Take it. I understand there's other places where you can do better. Get to those areas. Do not waste any time. It's extremely important. What people are seeing are the great rates, and the reason that we're starting to see these fluctuations in the market is supply and demand, and the free market is doing its job. It's what's happening. I was just at my local utility trailer dealer just the other day looking to buy a new trailer, and every single trailer on the lot was sold. Every single one was sold. They had a new order come in a few weeks ago. Before the brand new trailers hit their lot, every single one of them was sold. They brought 60 trailers, 60 trailers in this month. Before they got any of them on the lot, every single one of them was sold. What that tells me is And this is happening across the country. It's happening in trailer dealers. It's happening with truck dealers. It's happening everywhere. What that tells us is the market is good. People want equipment. People are jumping into this industry, and they're equalizing the market. It's already starting to happen. We're already seeing it. We've got other things that are affecting the market as well. Freight volumes are up and down. Interestingly enough, we're seeing trends where freight volumes are rising and supply of trucks, the supply of trucks is keeping pace. So it's kind of interesting to see how that's happening. It's keeping rates steady, and rates are still good. You just have to be good at understanding the market. Again, join the group, the Trucking Rates and Lanes group. In that group, a few months ago now, a couple of months ago, I opened up a new Facebook feature for mentoring, a mentorship feature. What's kind of cool is hundreds of people volunteered to either be a mentor or asked for a mentor. What's interesting is I have not been able to match all of them up. There are a lot on both sides that want to be a mentor or would like to have a mentor. The interesting pattern that I've found is I've got 3 top big questions. I mean, there's a few random, specific questions here and there, but the 3 top questions that I'm getting are things that people would like to learn more, that they would like to have a mentor to learn how to do better is, number 1, how do I negotiate better rates? They would like somebody to help them learn more tips, tricks, and techniques to learn better rates. They want to learn how to negotiate. That's the number 1 ask for in that group right now. How do I negotiate better rates? Which is completely understandable. The group is about rates and lanes. That's what people go there for. Completely understandable. The next biggest question, how do I get customers? How do I get direct customers, rather? How do I get customers? That is the next biggest question. Also understandable. And we're going to come back to that because I think there's a little bit of a disconnect as to why they want customers. We're going to come back to that. The third biggest question is, how do I become a broker? How do I become a broker? What's interesting is some of the same people that are asking, how do I become a broker, are the same ones that are asking, how do I get direct customers? It's kind of, I'm not sure if you all see the irony there. We're going to come back to that in a second. Let me loop back here. On the other side, though, that was the group that is asking for a mentor. On the other side of that, we have the people that want to offer their services to help teach other people how to be a mentor. Now, we've got people that are absolutely skilled in compliance. We've got people that are skilled in growing a fleet. We've got just a few brokers over there, just a few. The majority, by and large, are drivers, and their main offer is how they can help another driver learn how to be a better driver. There's nothing wrong with that. I completely understand, but the way that they've worded it in most cases is they have decades of experience, they're a great driver themselves, and they could teach somebody else how to be a great driver. What they're not talking about is how to negotiate better rates, how to run a better business. They're talking about how to physically hold that steering wheel and drive the truck. How do you be a better driver? I don't care about being a driver. I mean, people have heard this before. We can teach a monkey to be a driver. Like it or not, driving the truck is the easiest and least important part of running any business. I know you're a trucking company, or you're delivering freight. That's your business, right? The actual act of driving the truck is the least important part of what you do. Please wrap your head around that. You don't need to be a better driver. Nobody is going to give you better rates because you can back into a parking spot the best. Nobody is going to give you better rates because you have the coolest looking truck and the most chrome. Being a better driver, having a cool truck, that is the least important part of running a business. Do you know what the most important part is? Number one, knowing your numbers. Without fail, knowing your numbers, backwards, forwards, and inside and out. Knowing your numbers. Do you know how many of those people in that group I could ask that would be able to tell me what their numbers are? There's about 24,000 people in that group right now. We are on the verge of being the biggest Facebook group that discusses anything regarding rates and lanes. And in that group, I can almost guarantee that the majority do not know their numbers backwards, forwards, and inside and out. That goes back to, how do I negotiate better rates? How do I negotiate better rates? Now that is absolutely important. Probably in the top 3 of things that you really need to be good at if you're going to run any business, not just trucking business, but how do you negotiate in general? Because negotiation, and I'm going to do a whole series on negotiation, but negotiation is just communication. How to get something in exchange for what you're offering. That's what a business is all about. You have something to offer, to sell a service, a product. How do you get something in return? How do you get money or other products or services in return? And in order to do that, you have to negotiate. So I understand people want to be better negotiators. We need better negotiators in business. Absolutely. No question about it. So that being the biggest ask, how do I negotiate better rates? I completely understand. How to be a better truck driver. What I need in that group are more business owners that would like to help people learn to be better business owners, not better truck drivers. I definitely want to have better truck drivers out here. I want safe highways. I want to make sure that we get the products shipped without damages. We want securement. We want all that stuff is important, but it's way down the list. Way down the list on importance, especially in a group that's called Rates and Lanes. It's not one of these super trucker groups out here. This is about rates and lanes. Let's learn better how to negotiate, how to find the data, how to understand the lanes, how to interpret the market, predict the market. Those are the important things, and that's what that group's all about. And that I know they're asking the right questions, but we're not getting enough of the right feedback. So how do I get customers, and how do I become a broker? Now, the people that are asking how do I get customers are the same people that I see asking how do I become a broker. If you don't have customers, you don't need to be a broker. That's the answer to that question. I can teach you how to become a broker on paper. It's a $300 application, just like becoming a motor carrier. $300 application. You probably want to get some insurance. Obviously, you got to post a $75,000 bond. There's ways to finance the bond. There's some simple procedures to become a broker on paper. Legally, get authority to be a broker. Just about anybody can do it. There are virtually zero requirements. I know there are schools out there that are saying that their schools are required, and FMCSA says it's a requirement. Technically, yes, but there's no enforcement there. Anybody, they don't ask you on the application if you have any experience. Not a question on the application. So anybody can get their authority and become a broker. Got a couple of phone calls here. It looks like that side of my streaming might be having an issue, so we're going to get to the phone calls first. I want to go to Joe in North Carolina. Maybe?
How you doing, Kenny?
Hey, Joe. Welcome to the show. How can we help you?
Hey, so we had briefly talked on Facebook about rates in Florida.
Right.
And Kind of just want to get a little bit more insight on how to negotiate costs to cover getting out. I've been here for quite some time, and now I'm in a position where I have to lay over for a night, and also want to get some information and insight on how to negotiate what is a good layover rate. Because I got a layover rate, but I'm still not sure if that's
okay.
One or not in that situation.
Okay. So understanding what your rate needs to be is one side of this equation, and how to negotiate that rate is the other side of the equation. So let's take this one step at a time. Negotiating rates into Florida and how to find freight out of Florida. First of all, understand the market. This is where knowing the lane, knowing the region is super important. I live in Florida. I use Florida as an example all the time because it is the most extreme market in the whole country. There is only 3 months of the year where the outbound Florida freight is better than the inbound Florida freight. And this ain't those 3 months right now, okay? So understanding that before you go in, on average, there are about 3 to 4 loads, or trucks rather, 3 to 4 trucks for every load in South Florida. Okay, so when you get south of, especially south of the I-4 corridor, and really much further south than Jacksonville or Tampa on the other side, there are 3 to 4 trucks for every load, which means that even if every single truck was willing to haul the freight for absolutely $0, absolutely nothing, even if that was the case, there would be 2 or 3 trucks leaving empty for every load that went out. So understand that deadheading out in some cases is a necessity. There at least 50 to 75% of the trucks in Florida must deadhead out, whether they like it or not, because there is not enough freight in Florida for the amount of trucks that are down there, which means you have to take your backhaul with you, is the term that we like to use. In other words, you get your rate going in and plan for a deadhead out, because chances are you will have to deadhead out, or because 50 to 75% of the trucks are leaving the state empty, shippers know that, brokers know that, they're going to pay you pennies because they can, because somebody's going to take it just to cover fuel money, or maybe even not enough to cover fuel money, but at least offset some of their losses out. Somebody's going to do it. Here's the thing. As a broker negotiating freight inbound, you know that there's about a 75% margin that are leaving empty, which means you have to pay 75% of those trucks round trip rates, which means one truck you could probably get to move back out. So there's a 75% difference. So when I'm quoting a load going in, I won't pay round trip money. I don't have to pay round trip money. I will pay, instead of 2 times the amount, I'll pay about 1.75 times the amount of what a normal rate would be. So that's why a lot of people avoid Florida altogether, because you may not be able to make as much in and out of Florida as you can running other markets. Because in other markets, you're going to be able to make your rate from point A to point B, then from point B to point C. But in the Florida market, you'll make your rate from point A to point B, which will be in South Florida, and you only make maybe 75% in addition, because you're either deadheading out or you're going to have to take something cheap. Now, that something cheap will probably only be the extra 25% that we missed out of. Okay? So what that means is, whatever your rate is, your standard rate, and I ask people this all the time. I do a whole series on how to quote a load. But let's say you needed $2 per mile. You're not going to get $4 a mile going into South Florida, but you might get $3, maybe $3.50 a mile going into South Florida. You might only get $1 to $1.50 back out. So that's going to be your offset. Now you add it all together, it ends up being your round trip money that you needed. You're just going to have one leg that's going to be way, way below, and one leg that's quite a bit above, and it'll only be the two combined that are going to be your round trip average that you needed. Typically, that's going to be how the average works in and out of Florida. So keep that in mind when you book a load into Florida. Understand the market coming back out. Plan on a deadhead or plan on something short back out. Negotiating layover. Now, this is something I was having a talk with one of my drivers just the other day, and I think I see him here in the watching on the live stream. Because of the market the way it is right now, I'm seeing a trend with brokers that are offering, being more difficult, rather, for detention and layover pay. They're either offering peanuts, $25 an hour for detention, and they'll say, well, that's their company policy. And once you're there sitting on the dock and you've got the load on, there's not a lot you can do about it. Actually, they don't have to pay you anything because it's not contracted in their rate. Some brokers have it in their master carrier agreement, but most don't. So unless you negotiate detention and layover on every single load, plan on getting zero. Goose eggs, nothing. That's all they owe you. The whole idea that they owe you anything is nonsense, because unless you negotiate it, they don't owe you anything. They owe you zero. They do you a favor when they say something like, I'll give you $25 an hour, or I'll give you $100 layover, okay? You have to negotiate these things up front. Now, most of the time, previously, over the past few months, it hasn't been a big deal because detention and layover weren't as big of a problem. Freight had to be shipped. They were getting desperate. Let's move it. In the past 2 weeks, since Hurricane Florence, I've seen this problem just explode because every single load in and out of the southeast area has detention and layover built in. If you don't negotiate it up front, you're not going to get what you want. So as far as negotiating layover, ask for it up front. And don't make it in addition to your rate. Quote them the rate up front. Make it a part of your rate. And in other words, say this. In the negotiation process, you're going to ask them, how long does it take to get loaded and unloaded? And they always say, they'll get you in and out quick. No problem, no detention, don't worry about it. And then you'll say, look, I understand this load's going to South Georgia or South Carolina or North Carolina right now, and I know the conditions there are pretty bad. Even Virginia, even East Tennessee right now. I know the conditions right there are bad. So what are we looking at in terms of layover? Oh, don't worry about it. And they don't want you to worry about it because they know if you worry about it now, they'll have to pay you later. That's inevitable. That's always what they say. And they make buddy with you, and you'll think, no problem, I trust this guy, I'm going to do the load. So what you do is you say, look, I will do this load for you for X amount of dollars, whatever it is. We'll just use $1,000 as an example. And you'll say, look, I will do this load for you. I will include 2 hours to load and 2 hours to unload, and I'll do it for $1,000. I'll need $50 an hour for each additional hour you keep me past that too. And I'll need an additional, whatever your rate is, let's say $250. I'll need an additional $250 for any layover. And then they always balk at that. They always flinch, and they're going to say, oh, we don't do that. Our customer doesn't pay. We won't pay detention until after 4 hours. We only pay $25 an hour detention. And, and you'll say, that's okay, because we're not anticipating any detention. Your customer, as you've assured me, gets me in and out of that area very, very fast. We don't have a problem, and chances of layover are very, very slim. So I know, because you've told me that, I can book another load. I don't have to worry about being held up or being laid over, so I can book another load. And if I book another load, I have to have assurances in place that I won't be held up. And if I do, if I get held up or laid over and I lose this other load, it's going to cost me that $50 an hour or $250 layover, whatever numbers you come up with. I just use those numbers as nice round examples. But you present it to them in that type of fashion. And then from there, it's a negotiation again. The whole process is a negotiation, but it's important to get that stuff on the rate confirmation up front on every single load, every single broker. Still with me, Joe?
So I mean, yes, I'm here. So the reason why I asked about layover is because I finally found a load out of Florida, out of Tampa, ironically, and so I was in Tampa. I signed the rate confirmation to pick up today, 6 p.m. I go to pick up at 6 p.m. and the shipper tells me, "Oh, it's tomorrow at 6 p.m."
Oh, wow.
So I call the broker back, and and he's like, "Oh, okay, hold on 1 second," and then he turns around and says, "Oh, well, they made an error on the bill of lading. It's actually tomorrow at 6 p.m." And he says, "I'll send you he says, and can you lay over? If not, I'll send you a trailer not used." So I named a price, what I thought was reasonable. I told him I'd lay over for $300. I sent it back to him, and he agreed. We got a new rate confirmation. I signed it, and I'm good to go for tomorrow. But I want to avoid having to renegotiate stuff like that.
Okay. Well, again,
So I think
the only way to avoid it is to have it up front, and there's two ways to have it up front. Either you can negotiate it on every single load and get it on the rate confirmation, or with some brokers, you can get an amendment to their master contract. I do not recommend that. I do not think it's a good idea to get an amendment to the master contract, and I'll tell you why. Because using it in the negotiation is a good way to get more information and a good way to get more money with more information. So just the way that I explained how you should present it, when you present it that way, when you ask them and you say, "How long will it take to get loaded or unloaded?" and they say, "Oh, no, it'll be really fast. Don't even worry about detention." And you say, "Okay." And you give them your rate and you say, "And I need this for detention." And then they say, "Oh, we can't do that." When you turn that around and you say, "Well, you told me it wouldn't be a problem, so why is it a problem now?" Now, that bit of information is you now understand what relationship they actually have with their customer. They don't actually know how long it's going to take. They don't know. They're not confident. If they were confident that there would be no detention or no layover, they'd put it in there in a heartbeat because they wouldn't be worried about it. But in the case that there would be something, you do need your protections. Now, you just said that 6 p.m. and they wanted you to lay over until 6 p.m. the next day. If you agreed to $300, that's your negotiation. Now, there will always be situations that come up that are out of your control that you won't pre-negotiate because they're unknowns. There are things that happen. Product could be damaged. The route could get changed. The locations. I mean, right now in North Carolina, we had a truckload going in there, and there were 3 different delivery locations before we actually got a finalized rate confirmation. The truck was already en route. It's unpredictable. So you can try to explain that in the initial negotiation, but there's always something that comes up, and in that case, you have to negotiate on each individual circumstance. And there's really no way around it because that's just how it falls. So, but it's important to try to get something up front. Now, if you do put it in the master agreement, keep in mind that 2 things could happen. Number 1, they may not use you because it's more than they are willing to pay. Or number 2, when you try to negotiate for more, they won't give it to you because you're already locked into that rate. So be very careful about putting in that. That's why I don't like to do it. Now, remember that detention and layover are a part of your quote. You have to decide, will you do the load if they don't accept your offer? Your offer is including the detention and layover. Do you want to do the load if they don't accept your offer? You can negotiate further, and eventually you'll come to an agreement, yes or no, on whatever rate you choose or what you've agreed upon, negotiated on. And you have to decide if it's worth doing the load. But the entire rate, the entire job is all part of your offer. I think people get tied up. I think people get tied up on the idea that the line haul rate that they offer is the only part of the offer. In other words, I'll do it for $1,000 and that's it. Everything else is something separate somehow. It's not. It's all part of the same offer that you're making. It's all encompassed. So just like if you were having a house built, and I think this is the same analogy that I use with my driver. If you're having a house built and you said, I want this house painted, a brown color. And they come back and they paint it a brown color and you say, oh, you didn't paint the trim. I want the trim painted white. They're going to turn around and say, no, that was not part of the deal. We painted it brown because you said brown. You didn't ask for white. That's separate. That's something different. If you want this included, it has to be part of the initial agreement. It's all a part of the initial offer that you make. It has to be all negotiated. If something else comes up in addition to your offer, it's going to be a separate negotiation. Now, if it's something where you lose all of your negotiation leverage because you're already under the load, you're already there, there's not a lot you can do about it. You can negotiate and you can ask for it, but at that point, they're just being nice if they give it to you.
And especially, I think especially since, if you offer the rate and you say you'll do it for $1,000 all in, you're realistically at that point assuming every variable within that.
Absolutely. Especially if you say all in. If you say all in, that means you have put everything in as part of the package deal. It's all in. So yeah, be very careful. Don't ever quote anything all in, because all in, you don't know what that's going to entail until you get there. Now, that being said, me personally, if somebody said that I'm going to lay over until 6 p.m. the next day, I would look at my daily, and I know you run a straight truck, is that right? You're not running a 53-foot trailer?
Yes.
Okay. So your number is going to be different than what my number would be. But for me, $300, I wouldn't wait until 6 p.m. the next day, because 6 a.m. the next morning, I could pick up something else. I could be moving out, or I could be using the night. If you're in South Florida and you're in Tampa, I'd be driving out of here, and I would be in a premium market first thing tomorrow. I'd be in, central Alabama somewhere by tomorrow morning and try to book something out of there. That's ideal for how to best use your time. Remember that every minute that ticks by has some type of value on it. What do you want to get out of it? Can you make more money between now and 24 hours from now, or is $300 all you'd make anyway? What can you do? So evaluate your offers that way.
That is great information. Had I used that thought process last Thursday, I don't think I'd still be in Florida.
Absolutely, and I know you. I was following you on Facebook and watching, and we kind of mentioned that before. Get out of Florida as fast as possible. You got to be very careful and plan ahead for these types of markets. So with that, Joe, I appreciate.
I think it is.
I appreciate the call. I'm going to put you back on hold, and thank you for the support. I think that might be the only caller that we're going to get tonight, because the phone lines shut down early. Anybody that's on the line right now, if you have any questions, go ahead and raise your hand, but I won't be able to bring any new callers in, only callers that happen to be on the line already. So if anybody else has a question that's on the line currently, go ahead and press 1, and I will get you on the air. Otherwise, I am going to have to go off of the YouTube stream and not the Facebook stream tonight. Let me try to catch up on the comments. Now, to be clear, I have done simultaneous broadcasts on YouTube and Facebook for the past probably close to a year or so. Let's see. So any of the previous shows, now they're not well titled because I use a program called Restream to stream it on both, and it doesn't let me change the title unless I go back to it later. So I am going to start maybe. So far, I'm not sure if I'm happy with the YouTube platform versus Facebook, but we'll give it a shot. I'm going to start doing it on YouTube more often. Let's see. The Ohio Trucker on YouTube says, if you can talk, you can negotiate, which is true, but you have to learn what you're doing. There are some people that struggle with it. one of the comments that I got on the video I did Friday, and if you haven't seen it, I'll see if I can link it into the description below. But that video was about the anchoring effect in negotiation. Who sets the anchor first, and what does it do to you? For a long time, I taught people to always try to get the number from the other person first. It is a good tool to get more information, which is what you're trying to do in a negotiation, but it's elementary level negotiation. And so I want to start teaching the next level. And the next level is going to be understanding when you should and when you shouldn't. And most of the time, if you're confident about it enough, and remember, the number one thing you need to know in business is know your numbers. If you know your numbers well enough and you're confident about it, giving the number first is okay, but you have to really be confident, and confidence is key. Okay. I've got some questions coming in on the live feed, and I've got some questions that I brought with me to the show tonight. I'm going to try to get as many of these as I can. Arturo says, do you think a bubble is being created in the trucking industry with all the new people coming in and getting their authority? How long do you think it will last? I think there was a bubble. There was a bubble that drove rates up. There was a spike. And because of that spike, a lot of people, tons of people that maybe have had their CDL and stopped driving a few years back and are getting back into it. People that are a company driver that have been making 50 cents a mile for years, they're deciding that they want to capitalize on these great rates, going out buying trucks. Fleets are buying trailers like crazy. If I ordered a trailer from my local dealer right now, it would be at least November before I could get a new one in. Everything they've got between now and then is already sold. And that's if I just want a standard stock run-of-the-mill trailer. If I want anything special, we're looking 6 months out or more. So equipment is coming in like crazy. Used equipment is hard to find or at a premium. Rates are good, and that's what happens in a free market. With the supply and demand, it draws more people in. That's the point. That's how it works. And unless we had a regulated industry where people weren't allowed to come into it, then rates would continue to rise because supply would never catch up. This is a good thing for the economy. It's a good thing for smart trucking business owners. It's a bad thing for unskilled, not so smart business trucking. I'm not going to use business owners. I'm going to say drivers. It's a bad thing for drivers that thought they were going to capitalize on this. The ones that are trying to be better drivers, those are the ones that will be selling their equipment. So around about this time next year, and it'll be over the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to start seeing a huge dump into the used truck and a trailer market. And be able to pick up some nice equipment pretty cheap pretty soon. Rates are still steady. From what we're seeing with the hurricane influence on the market, we should have seen some things going upward this time of year. The hurricane has affected it, and I can somewhat tell you why. The entire East Coast right now is in recovery mode. They've pretty much shut down outbound shipments. That is a huge percentage of the entire truckload market for the country. A lot of trucks have shifted on what they've done in the past. A lot of trucks ran the 95 corridor up and down. Because of this storm and because of the recovery efforts, still some of the places in North Carolina are still shut down. They're still doing cleanup and just working their way back into some of these areas. Some of the outbound shipments won't be fired up for several weeks. There's a lot of stuff going in for recovery. Not a lot of shipments coming back out. All the trucks that used to run over there, if they're not doing FEMA relief stuff, they're running in the rest of the markets, which is why we're seeing the rest of the country kind of slow down right now. The money hasn't started flowing back from that area. But what's going to happen is we're going to have the slinky effect. We're going to have that entire East Coast economy is falling behind right now because they're shut down. They're going to need to catch up. Orders will need to be filled. Those factories, everything is going to kick back up, crank back up. It may be another season because there is some agricultural stuff over there that may have gotten knocked out. Flooding and winds may have damaged crops and so forth. maybe another season for the agricultural part to rebound, but the manufacturing out of the North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, like even East Tennessee, that will start to rebound over the next few weeks and a couple of months. Probably going to hit us hard right during the Christmas rush, and we're going to see a huge boom. What's going to happen, though, is we're going to see another big spike going into November, December. It always happens every year because of the Christmas push, but we're going to see that spike increased even more because the recovery is we're going to start seeing still inbound FEMA shipments going into that area, but we're going to start seeing outbound shipments again, and that money will start freeing up and flowing back out. Once that happens all at the same time, and then Christmas rush on top of that, we're going to see a huge spike, probably spike higher than we were when we started. With any spike, we're going to see a lot of new people come in. With a lot of new people, we're going to see a downturn. We're going to see a crash. Now remember, just over a year ago, van freight, and I looked at the trend lines today, van freight right now is averaging right around $2.15 per mile, which is about where I suspected that we would land. I thought we'd be going up by now, but I think the storm is the reason why and the recovery efforts. But what we're seeing is a year ago, 1 year ago, maybe about 13 to 14 months ago, we're still 40 cents higher than we were then on average. I am seeing people crying doom and gloom in some markets because they're having a hard time just getting money to break even. I'm a little fearful what's going to happen after this boom when we come into January, February, March next year. February tends to be the slowest of the season. If we're on the downturn of this, if we come back down under $2 a mile average on vans, I think that's why I'm saying that in the next year or so, we're going to start seeing a lot of brand new used equipment hit the truck lots. So we'll see what happens. Some people are going to hang on as long as possible until the bank takes it from them. Some people are going to be scraping by paycheck to paycheck. They might make it 2 or 3 years. But those 5-year notes, we're going to see a lot of those cut a little short by the bank. We're going to see what happens. It happens every single time. We saw this happen in 2014. Resulted in the low rates of 2015 and 16, started to increase mid-2017, but people have short memories. A year ago, we were so much lower than we are right now. People complaining about rates that they're getting now, and they were a dream a year ago. So be very, very careful. I put this warning out several months ago when the rates were good to be careful, but now we're seeing some of the effects. People are not ready yet. Not ready yet. So don't go out and buy a new Harley or a new boat in the next few months. When rates are we're gonna see a rebound come back up again. Rates are gonna be good. Put that money in the bank and be ready. All right, let's see. Scott says, Kenny, do you think the tariffs are having any effect on freight volume? Yes. But not necessarily in a negative way. What's happening with the tariffs, we are seeing some differences in trade. Things that we were exporting, we're not exporting anymore. Things we were importing, we're not importing anymore. It's going to take some time to balance out. It will balance out, but for example, the agricultural commodities. It'll be another season. There are certain commodities like soybeans that are now being, there are tariffs on those for exports. So farmers that are growing soybeans this year might be struggling a little. They're having a hard time selling the soybeans. That means next year they're not going to grow soybeans. There are some commodities that the government has been paying them not to grow to try to increase in other areas. The government is cutting some of that back. They're changing things up. The market's got to reset. So yes, the tariffs are changing things. We're still seeing good volumes. That's the thing, is we're still seeing good volumes. They're just moving in different lanes right now. So right now, the volume, we're still seeing record volume. There is still more truckload shipments out there today than ever. Record volumes, but we are seeing supply and capacity for carriers shifted a lot because of the storm, a lot because of weather. We had a lot of fires out west earlier in the year. We're obviously got flooding and rain in the south and southeast. So that's changing things. It's changing the supply and demand of the trucks, supply and demand of the commodities. So the tariffs do play a role in it. Everything plays a role in it. ELDs still play a role in everything that's happening. ELDs, I was reading an article, play a role in the GDP of the country. But ironically, it's a positive gain. It's not a negative. If you ask the truckers that are trying to protest in Washington, they're saying how it's ruining the economy, but the opposite is true. What we've seen since the ELDs and what the numbers are saying is it looks like it's having a positive effect on the economy. So with tariffs, it may be doing the same thing. We won't know that yet because it's still a new game. Next year when the market shifts, we'll see what happens. All right. So the show tonight is back to basics, an overview of truckload freight. A lot of people are getting into the business that have been out for a long time. We're getting a lot of new drivers, people that are going out buying a truck for the first time, leasing to a carrier, getting their own authority. People getting their own authority right now, it's record setting. There are so many people getting their own authority. So I want to start kind of at the beginning. Obviously, if you're running a trucking company, there's basically three things that you need. You need a truck, you need a driver, and you need a company to run it under. Whether that's leasing to another carrier or you get your own authority. The truck is super important. So going back to basics, the truck that you get could make you or break you. That's what I was just talking about. It's dangerous right now to not have a good handle on your numbers and buy a brand new truck. It's also dangerous right now to not have a handle on your numbers and buy an old used truck that you don't have the capabilities of repairs on. It's also super dangerous right now if you don't have a good handle on your numbers and you buy a brick truck. In other words, a non-aerodynamic truck that's going to get horrible fuel economy. It's also a really bad idea if you don't have a handle on your numbers to go out and buy a truck that may require a lot of maintenance or that you don't have a maintenance fund for or you don't have any records of what maintenance it may require. Notice there's one thing that's in common with all of that. If you don't have a handle on your numbers, it's a bad idea. Bad idea to buy a truck if you don't know the numbers, if you haven't done the research. Now, I know if you don't have a truck, if you've never driven been an owner-operator, you won't have a lot of numbers of your own, but there are numbers from the rest of the industry. You can do some research. You can learn the rates and lanes. You can learn the markets. You can learn the ins and outs of running a business first. Super important. Remember, running the business is number one. Driving the truck comes somewhere down the list. Know your numbers. Second is the driver. Remember, the driver could be a trained monkey. If you want to be the driver, I'll leave it at that. The driver is important. What's important about the driver is, number one, they're safe. If you have, especially if you're going to get your own authority, if you have an issue in your safety record, if you have tickets, crashes, drug violations, I would be very, very cautious to get your own authority right now. Insurance rates, we actually just spent a few hours in the conference room with a new insurance guy this week. And insurance rates are at highs we've never seen before. He is seeing new authorities seeing $40,000 to $50,000 per year for one truck for a new authority, depending on the location, their motor vehicle record, their experience. Third is the company. As an owner-operator, unfortunately, this is where this industry has an issue. Too many owner-operators buy a truck to do exactly what they did when they were drivers, when they were company drivers. They buy a truck, they take on all of the responsibilities, they take all of the risk to be no different than they were when they were a company driver. Maybe they get paid a little bit more. But in my opinion, if they're doing it that way, it's not worth the risk. An owner-operator that, one, doesn't have a handle on the numbers, and two, runs things just like they did as a company driver, should probably not be an owner-operator. And what do I mean by that? Company driver, they get in a truck. They drive the truck, they pick up a load, they get the paperwork, they take whatever is handed to them, they deliver it, they drop the load off, maybe they get a signature, and then they take it to a truck stop, they scan it through TransFlow or one of the others, and get it back to the company, and they get a check at the end of the week. They decide to become owner-operators. They do the same thing. They drive the truck, pick up the load, take whatever paperwork is handed to them, they deliver the load, scan the paperwork back to the company, they get a check at the end of the week. They don't budget. They don't plan for repairs and maintenance. At the end of the night, they turn the key off as if their job is over, just like a company driver would do. They go home for the week. They don't even pay attention to the truck because their job is over. Horrible idea. A lot of owner-operators are getting into the business right now because they see big money. That big money comes at a cost. If you're going to earn it, you got to get out and actually earn it. Means you got to do the right work. You got to do the hard work. Do the maintenance on the truck. Do the paperwork right. I see Columbia Glider Dave is in the group right now. He can tell you I give all of my owner-operators a lesson on contracts. All contracts. I start with broker carrier agreements, owner-operator contracts, the bill of lading. Yes, the bill of lading is a contract. The bill of lading is a federal document. It is a contract. It is probably the number one fallback contract. It trumps your owner-operator agreement, trumps your broker carrier agreement. The bill of lading is the owner-operator's most important document. How many of you owner-operators get that document, just accept whatever's on it, and get in the truck and drive? You gotta pay attention to all the paperwork. You need to understand contracts. You need to understand the bill of lading. Don't go sign. This while I was out. I did a couple of shows over the past couple of months, but all in all, I was kind of off the air for a while. There was a big to-do over a contract issue that came up. This contract was absolutely horrible. Anybody that signs a contract with clauses about penalties and all these horrible things, and this was supposed to be for a driver, which should have been a W-2 position. The first page of the contract said something like, let it be known that you're going to be a 1099 driver, and then the rest of the contract dictates exactly how they do their job and all the penalties that are involved if they don't do it the way the contract says. Which basically the first page says you're a 1099 driver, and the rest of the contract says you're not a 1099 driver, because the key to being a 1099 anything is you have to be able to do the job as you see fit. In other words, they tell you what to do and you decide how to do it. That's why, by and large, the consensus is you should own the truck, be responsible for the repairs, be responsible for the fuel, because that gives you some separation. But if you're working for a company and you sign a contract like this, it's just trouble waiting to happen. So there's a big fallout about that. Owner-operator contracts are absolutely horrible as well, especially lease purchase contracts. You don't know how many lease purchase guys I have seen just lose their truck literally the week they were supposed to get the title. Matter of fact, years ago, there was a truck that came onto me, and Cliff Notes version of this story. They were leased to a company. They were about to get their truck. They were super excited about it. That they basically said, come on by the yard with the truck. And they were thinking, wow, it's a week early. We're going to get the title. It's a week early. I'm so excited. They're going to sign over the paperwork. We're going to get it now. And they got there and they said, we filed bankruptcy, clean out the truck. Well, we're a week from getting the title. What do you mean? Oh, well, we took your money. We didn't pay the bank. The bank's taking your truck too. Clean it out. Yeah, they could file a claim. They could file a small claims court, whatever. They're going to take it up with the bankruptcy court because that company filed bankruptcy. They lost everything. To boot, turned around because of what their contract said. When they turned their truck in, it was a walkaway lease, but when they turned their truck in, they have to have new tires, new shocks, and all the maintenance has to be up. They thought they were getting the truck that week, right? So they held off on everything. They were going to get the tires they wanted and the shocks and all this stuff done at the shop they preferred. All that stuff had to be done. So not only did they lose the truck, they turned around and said, not only give me your keys to your truck, clean it out, and you owe us about $10,000. Why? Because they signed a crappy deal contract is why. Got to read that stuff and understand what you're getting into. I have had people, I can't even tell you how many people literally have come up to me at these conferences that I put on and events, hand me their contract and say, is there any way out of this? I'm not an attorney, folks. I've had people hand me their contract and say, please tell me there's a way out of this. And I flip through it and I say, look, it says right here, this is what you're up against. I'm not an attorney, but this is pretty plain English to me. These contracts are horrible. Owner-operator contracts, read them thoroughly. Understand what you're getting into. If you get your own authority, you're going to be dealing with FMCSA. You're going to be dealing with compliance issues. You're going to be dealing with insurance companies. All of these have contracts. Factoring companies. This is another big thing right now. A lot of people are jumping into becoming carriers, getting their own authority. They don't have, what was that number one thing they need to know? The number one thing, know your numbers, understand where understand your finances, know your numbers, right? They jump into this not knowing the numbers, no clue how they're going to fund the business. I have had people come to me to help set up their authority, and as part of the process of setting up their authority, they want to get factoring. Absolutely not. It's not required. And they think that it's necessary. I've had people tell me that they thought factoring was a requirement, like a legal requirement. They had to do it. Absolutely not. Understand what you're getting into with factoring if you choose to factor. Now, I am not entirely against factoring. There's a time and place for it. We factor our carrier. We do. I'm not going to say that we don't. I'm not going to say, tell you to do something I wouldn't do, but understand the cost. I did not start factoring until we added our 4th or 5th truck. And it was not for the funding reasons. It was for compliance and paperwork and a single point of billing, because it just got to be overwhelming for us at that point. There are other methods for funding your business. Do not get into factoring. It is like a payday loan. In the Rates and Lanes group, a couple of weeks ago, I explained how a factoring transaction is supposed to be recorded in your accounting system. It is a loan. I don't care how you want to explain it. Fees, whatever, quick pay, whatever you want to call it, it goes on the books as a loan. If you do your books correctly, it is a loan. Even it doesn't matter if it's non-recourse. It doesn't matter. None of that. It's a loan. You have a receivable open from your customer. You have a loan payable to the factoring company. Until that customer pays and closes out the receivable, zeroes out that payable, that is on the books as a loan. So you have your asset as a receivable and your liability as a payable loan. That's what factoring does to you. You have to understand that that's how it works. I don't care what you call it, and I know there's a lot of dispute about it, about the fees and how much it costs, but if that goes on the books as a loan and you're paying 2, 3, 4% on what should be a 30-day payable, and I understand it might go 45, 60 days, well, let's say you're paying 3% and it does go 60 days, that's still equivalent to an 18% APR. Now, I don't factor our broker business. We have a line of credit on the broker business. And our line of credit on the broker business is somewhere in the neighborhood of like 5% APR. Nothing. Peanuts in comparison. Now, a line of credit doesn't give you the other benefits of having a single point of billing and so forth. I get it. That's why I said that there are a time and place for factoring. But understand the expenses. Understand what your money's going toward. We're at the top of the hour. Who thinks I should keep going? I've got some other stuff that I wanted to talk about. I may hold off till next week on some of this, but there is one phrase. If you watched my video on Friday, hold on. Let me finish my comments here on this. So we got factoring. Then obviously, once you have your authority set up, your insurance set up, you need a bookkeeping system. Know your numbers. I think I've pounded on that enough for this hour. Know your numbers inside and out. You need a bookkeeping system. I am really starting to like the Trucklogics, which is a transportation management system. Works great at any level. If you're an owner-operator leased to a carrier, if you are a one-truck operation, if you have a fleet of trucks, there's an app for the phone. And you don't necessarily need QuickBooks with it, but if you choose, it syncs to QuickBooks as well. So it's super powerful, and a lot of information can be put in there. So it's a great system. Trucklogics. There's others out there. I personally do not use Trucklogics because it was not ready for prime time when I needed to make a switch. I'm using a system that I paid nearly $20,000 to set up, and if I had to do it again, I would probably use Trucklogics. So there are others. Ascend TMS is another. You can just use QuickBooks. You don't need to have anything load or trucking specific, but track your numbers. Absolutely track your numbers. Then you need to deal with brokers or find customers. Going back to the 3 big points in mentoring, how do I get customers? How to become a broker? You want to find customers? You need to do some sales and marketing. You got to get out there. Maybe do some training on that. Read some books on sales and marketing. I could obviously, I've done hours on that. I'm not going to go another hour just about that. People are saying to keep going, so I'll keep going for now. I've got more to talk about. But learning sales. In my video the other night on Friday night, one of the comments was, the video was about anchoring. Who should throw the number out first? And somebody said, you need to have a good sales pitch before you throw out the number. I don't agree with that 100%. There's different levels before you start talking about a number. The first level is marketing. You got to market your business. Be it business cards, having some logos, Facebook presence, or social media presence, get it out there. Market your business and understand. Posting your truck on a load board is a form of marketing. Calling brokers and offering your services is a form of marketing. You're just putting the word out there that you're available to offer your services. But you got to do the marketing. Next is sales. Once you have your foot in the door and somebody's willing to work with you, now you have to explain to them why they should. Give them your sales pitch at that point. You're going to tell them all the things you can offer. Or I have this type of equipment. I run these lanes. I can service you this way. You have this problem, and I can solve it for you with this product or this service. I have this trailer. You have that problem. If I use my trailer with your shipment, you won't have that problem anymore. Sales pitch. Okay, that's your sales pitch. You haven't started negotiating yet. Negotiating comes in when you agree to make a deal. They're willing to buy from you. That's when you start negotiating. Negotiating is kind of a subchapter of sales, but negotiation starts when they agree to buy the service from you. Then you go back and forth with negotiation, a little give and take. You both have your points of interest. You want it done this way, they want it done that way, and you go back and forth until you agree on a solution. Then you start talking about the money. And if you do it right, talking about the money doesn't just become haggling. Too often, people just start haggling over money. So be very, very careful about how to phrase your initial offer. Make sure that it's not, I'll give you this, oh, I can only do that, and then just go back and forth. I've said it 1,000 times, I can program 2 robots to do that. Program one for $1,000, the other for $2,000, and they'll go back and forth until they meet in the middle at $1,500. It's not about trying to meet in the middle or split the difference. It's about trying to negotiate to get your number. Learn how to do that. Super important. If you want to find new customers, you have to learn sales and you have to learn negotiation. You have to get good at it. Then dealing with brokers. Now, the other question, how do I become a broker? You have to learn sales, you have to learn negotiation, and you have to get good at it. Filling out the forms with FMCSA is a formality. Becoming a broker means marketing, sales, negotiation, then closing deals. Once you do that, you've got customers, finding trucks, and you got to do it all again. Marketing, sales, negotiation, closing deals. When you can do that with customers and with trucks, then you're a broker. If you don't understand that process, you're not ready to be a broker. If you don't know where to find customers, you're not ready to be a broker. If you are a carrier looking for customers, work on those steps. Marketing, sales, negotiation, closing the deal. Too often I hear people saying that this is where there's a disconnect between a broker and a customer. They want to become a broker so that they can get customers. Doesn't work that way. You don't have to be a broker to get customers. As a carrier, you can get customers. A good customer is more willing to work with you as a carrier than they are willing to work with you as a broker. And there'll be more money in it as a carrier than it will be as if you go to find them as a broker. If you do it right, if you're good at the marketing, sales, negotiation, and closing the deal. But just because you're a broker, you go out and get that authority to become a broker, does not mean customers are going to flock to you. I think that's where a lot of people get confused. You don't just get customers because you're a broker. You become a broker because you have customers. We became a broker at Patriot Star. We added it's a whole separate company, a whole separate division. We had more freight than we could move, more offers to move certain loads than we could handle on our own trucks. So we got a brokerage and we shifted those customers. They're no longer carrier customers, they're broker customers now. And we've established that. We broker all of those loads. Even if we move them on our own trucks, they go through the brokerage. They will broker first and we hire our own carrier. That's the proper way to do it. But we had to have customers before we went and got a brokerage. Otherwise, it was a waste of time and money. So don't ask me how to become a broker if you don't first know how to get customers. And I've just told you how to get customers. And I think we're still live. All right. And my last comment, this was another thing I got for feedback from my video on Friday. And if I'm still live, somebody give me a comment that we're still good, because I just got a screen of death here on the video stream. Still live. Oh, thank you. Okay. Last comment. This was a question about a new term I threw out on my video on Friday. Again, I'll try to find that video and I'll link that video to the comments in this one. I think that was one of the better videos I did on negotiation. It was really on my mind. That's why I did it late on Friday. I was in several discussions all last week about who should throw out the number and what the number should be and all that, and it comes back to anchoring. So I did this video about anchoring, and I threw out a term, a word, I guess, ZOPA, Z-O-P-A. I threw that out, and a lot of people said that was the first time they've ever heard of it. What exactly is it? The zone of possible agreement. I'm going to do some mini videos and break out just all these little terms, like 5 or 10 minute videos. Not good at that. I am not good at sticking to a timeline. If any of you have followed me for any length of time, these hour-long shows turn into hour-and-a-half or 2 hour-long shows. I'm going to try to do some 5 or 10 minute videos on just these little points in negotiation. That's going to be my new video series. But the ZOPA, Z-O-P-A, Zone of Possible Agreement. What is that, and how do you know what that is? A zone of possible agreement means it's where you want to be and where your opponent in the negotiation wants to be. Now, how do you know where you want to be? You're going to do all the research. You're going to understand the market. You're going to understand your numbers, number one. You're going to understand inside and out what you need for any lane that you want to run. And then you're going to come up with 3 main numbers that you want. You're going to have your absolute dream number. This is going to be the number that you would throw out if you're going to set a high anchor. It's going to be somewhere at that dream number. It's what, you know, this is probably not worth that much, but if that's what you got, you would be thrilled. That's your dream. Then you're going to have the bottom of that. You're going to have the walk away number. If you don't get this, it's not worth it. We're going to close the deal. We're just close the doors on this deal. We're done. Then you're going to have somewhere in the middle, which is your aspiration of what you'd like to have, what you think it's really worth, which you're pretty sure that if you gave that number, that's really what this load is worth and what you're going to get in this negotiation. You have those 3 numbers. You might throw in a 4th number, which I call the Japanese no, which is a little bit above that dream number. Just a little bit more than your dream, which basically means you know the load's not worth it. They're not going to accept that. Can barely say it with a straight face. Basically, you're giving them an offer, but it's a no. It's a Japanese no offer. There's other ways to do a Japanese no, but a Japanese no offer is going to be that super high rate. You know they're going to say no, we're not going to do this deal. They're going to close the doors on this whole negotiation. But you left them with that offer. You didn't tell them no. You just told them a number that they couldn't live with. And you knew that, which is why you gave them that. You told them no. Okay, so you're going to have those 4 numbers. But then your opponent is going to have their numbers as well. Their 3 to 4 numbers. Now those 3, your walk away, dream, aspiration, those 3 really set their zone of possible agreement, okay? So you have yours, they have theirs. You're going to have your high number for a dream, they're going to have their low number for a dream. You're going to have your low number for a walk away, they're going to have their high number for a walk away. Those 2 are going to overlap somewhere. Where those overlap is your zone of possible agreement. Sometimes they overlap spot on. Sometimes they may offer more than you, and which means your dream number might go higher. Sometimes there's some variances there, but where you and they both agree that range of the absolute most and the absolute minimum, that range is the zone of possible agreement. Now, I think I kind of summarized it in my video the other night, but that wasn't my main point of discussion, so I wanted to clear that up. The zone of possible agreement is not what you think the market should be. It's not what they think the market should be. It's what the span in the middle of what you both, that overlap, that is the zone of possible agreement. So I just wanted to clear that up. And Columbia Glider Dave says, BATNA, don't forget. Okay, BATNA, if that's a question. The BATNA is best alternative to a negotiated agreement. A best alternative to a negotiated agreement, meaning it's your plan B. If you do not seal the deal, if you don't close on this negotiation, what else will you do? Best alternative to a negotiated agreement. Now, having that in your back pocket, it does a couple of things. Gives you confidence. It gives you an alternative. It gives you more authority to say no because you know that you've got something else that you can do. Now, sometimes your BATNA stinks. Sometimes your best alternative is to deadhead out, but it's still your best alternative. Now, if your best alternative, if your BATNA is better than their offer, you can bet that you're probably going to tell them. If your best alternative is deadheading out, it's probably a good idea to keep that to yourself. But having that BATNA is powerful in that it gives you the confidence to say no. And in any negotiation, the most powerful thing that anybody can say is no. And Josh said that the Japanese no can bite you. And the Japanese no, sometimes they do accept the Japanese no. Sometimes they will. Let me expand on what the Japanese no is. I know I'm getting off topic, but we're turning this last half here into negotiation, I guess. So a Japanese no, in the Japanese language and in the Japanese culture, they don't say no. They don't flat out say no and deny you because they find it dishonorable. It's a very honorable culture. Everything is about honor. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons we went to war with Japan was over some of these honorable types of culture things that they have. Japan feels that they're used to, they're more westernized culture now, but they used to feel that they were the center of the world. Everything revolved around them. They didn't want any outside information. They didn't care. They didn't need it. And I think we just lost all the phone calls because we went overtime. So it's an hour overtime from when that phone's dropped off. So, yeah, got it. Blog talk cut off. So, because of the way the Japanese no is and the way the reason I call it Japanese no, for example, if somebody said, hey, why don't you come out to dinner with us tomorrow night? A Japanese no would be, No, I'm sorry, I've got other plans. You didn't just flat out say no. You said, I'm sorry, I can't because I've got something else to do. I've got something else going on. You give them a way to say no, but at the same time, they can say, oh, what else are you doing? You're going out with your kids? My kids are here too. Let's all go together. So you're still giving them a way in, but you didn't completely cut them out, and it's an easier way. It's a less rude way to say no. A Japanese no offer, meaning monetary no, is a number that's so big, so out there, that it's almost to where you can't say it with a straight face. And you know that they're gonna flinch at this. You absolutely know that there's no way. And when you give that Japanese no, sometimes they're just desperate enough to say, you know what? I'll take you up on that. I'm good. I got the kids tomorrow night. Let's go out with the kids. Okay? They will sometimes take you up on that. Japanese no can bite you because sometimes they're willing to accept your offer, even as out there and outrageous as it is. All right. Let me scroll through and see if we have any other questions. Let's see. Columbia Glider Dave. Broker yesterday only wanted to pay me $25 an hour after 3 hours. No problem. After 2 hours, the shipper lost a truck. That's another way to do it. They're paying you for the use of your truck. If they don't pay you the price of your truck, you have the right to pull it out. What is layover exactly? At most mega carriers, it's after you sit for a day on a load, and that's layover. Typically, typically they're going to pay you detention up to about 10 hours. After 10 hours, they're going to pay you a daily rate. So if their layover rate is $25 an hour, which is typically their detention rate is $25 an hour. After 10 hours, it's $250. They're going to pay you $250 total. Or they'll have a cap on their detention and say, look, if we go over more than 5 hours, that's where we cap off the detention. After that, it's a layover rate, and they can keep you up to 24 hours. That's something that is absolutely up for negotiation. One of the things that I like to try to throw in there is a layover is in addition to detention. A layover is they can't get to me today. You paid me detention. Now you're going to pay me to sit until the next day. I would prefer both. If you don't want to pay me to sit until the next day, you owe me that detention, and I'm leaving. The problem is most of the time if you leave after that first several hours of detention, they're not going to pay you anything. So it's very difficult to collect on that. But that is what layover is. And Columbia Glider Dave says, I'd say 10 to 12 hours is a layover. Unfortunately, brokers, most contracts are going to say that 24 hours is a layover. So they'll typically pay you your detention rate up to a point, up to the layover rate. At that point, you wait until the next day. All right. Columbia Glider Dave. Never say all in. Exactly. Never say all in. Because all in means everything is all inclusive. Columbia Glider Dave. Full maintenance leases look like a bad idea to me. It all comes down to the numbers on that. So you got to read your contracts. If you're a company driver and you're making 40 cents a mile, and you can come out here and get a full-service, all-inclusive lease, and you can make $1 a mile profit afterwards, it could make sense. It really comes down to the numbers. The problem is a lot of those are worded in such a way you're not going to make any more profit than you would the other way around. But there are some opportunities out there. The big money is a mirage until you know how to get it. And that's absolutely true. Most brokers offer quick pay for comparable rate than factoring companies offer. A better option, right? All right. Big Rich says, most brokers offer quick pay for a comparable rate than factoring companies offer. A better option, right? Yes, absolutely. Most of the bigger brokers, your C.H. Robinson, Landstar, J.B. Hunt, even the new apps, Uber and Convoy, and all of these, they all offer quick pay options. Some of them offer quick pay with no additional charge. Convoy, no additional charge. J.B. Hunt, for a while, if you use their app, and I don't know if it's still available, if you use their app, no additional charge. Mercer has never been an additional charge. Same day or next day funding at no additional charge. Landstar, last I checked, is 1.5%. C.H. Robinson, 2%. Those are very good numbers. Most factoring companies, if you have one truck, are 3 to 4%. I've seen some as high as 5% fee off the top. When you sign a deal with a broker, it's going to be a 30-day payment term. Some are less. I've seen as low as 21 days or 15 days. If you were signing a factoring agreement at a 30-day pay, and I think we're getting glitchy with the video here. For signing a factoring agreement on a 30-day pay, it's equivalent to a times 12 APR. So a 5% on a 30-day pay is equivalent to a 60% APR. Remember, it goes on the books as a loan. A 2% is a 24% APR. 1.5%, 18%. 1% is a 12%. So none of those options are better than funding it cash yourself. So, quick rundown on a way you can finance your business if you don't have any money. Number one, work with only brokers that offer quick pay. They're probably going to be better quick pay options than you're going to get from a factoring company. Plus, factoring companies, even if it's non-recourse, still have ways to turn around and throw this back at you. Most factoring companies, again, read the contracts. In the contracts, if the load you haul within 30 days, they file bankruptcy in a non-recourse, their factoring company will cover it. If it goes beyond 30 days, some might be 60 or 90 days. If it goes beyond that term when they file bankruptcy, they're going to still back charge you for that. So be extremely careful because the contract says everything. There are several times that they will still back charge you. If a broker files bankruptcy after they have paid you, after they've already paid you, and they file bankruptcy within 90 days of paying you, the bankruptcy court, not the factoring company, the bankruptcy court is going to come after you to repay that money after they have already paid you. So, quick pay is still extending credit. One of the best ways to avoid that kind of thing is, especially with a new broker or a broker that doesn't have any credit, you're not extending credit. You want payment on delivery. They're not extending credit that way. If you take a quick pay fee, that means essentially, let's say it's a quick pay at 2%. The way that that's worded on an invoice is 2%, whatever your time frame is, let's say it's 48 hours, 2% to net 30. Means you get a 2% discount if you pay in 2 days, and you have to pay the net, the balance, complete in full in 30 days. That's the way it's worded on an invoice, but it still shows that you're extending credit. The only way to avoid that is to not extend credit at all. Your invoice shows due upon receipt, has to be paid right now, and you don't have any credit terms with that particular broker. In other words, in their contract, you didn't say they have 30-day credit terms. If they pay you on credit terms and they file bankruptcy, it doesn't matter if it's non-recourse or not, the bankruptcy court is coming after you. They're not coming after the factoring company. Keep that in mind. You have to understand. So a way to fund your business is use your quick pays, try to avoid any fees, get your payment on delivery. Within a week, if you use quick pays on everything that first week, you should be able to run your business the rest of the month. The second week, only do quick pays on 75% of your loads. The third week, only do quick pays on 50% of your loads. The fourth week, don't do quick pays at all. Within a month, you could be cash flowing your business, because if you did quick pay, or rather a regular standard pay on 30 days, after the first 30 days, you have cash flow, and you can run your business on cash flow rather than having to factor the money. So with 1 or 2 trucks, this should be fairly easy. Doing your collections, handling your invoicing. 1 or 2 trucks is easy. Again, I didn't start factoring until we had 4 or 5 trucks. And then it was only for single point of contact. They handled some more of the back office work. And even now, we're looking at possibly getting out of factoring altogether again because we have somebody working here full time in the office. Once we get some things in order for that to happen, we may be pulling out of that completely. That being said, there are services and there's reasons to factor. But just be very careful and understand the expenses. All right, it looks like that's all the questions. It does not look like I get the same amount of feedback on YouTube or the same type of questions and comments on YouTube as I get on Facebook. So I'm going to look at this and decide if I'm going to stay on the YouTube platform or if I'm going to move over to the Facebook platform. I suspect that people are making comments on this video on the Facebook side, but I won't be able to see them here on the live side. So if you are one of those people, please check us out on YouTube. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button and the little bell to alert you when I do have live videos coming up. And with that, I will be signing off for tonight. So remember, dream big, aim high, strategize your plan, earn your success, because only you drive you. Have a good night, everybody.